Okay, welcome back here to wrap up the weekend edition of the Korelin Economics Report. Doug Casey is with me right now. Doug just published a book. It's entitled, and I'm looking at it right here, Totally Incorrect by Doug Casey as Told to Louis James. I got to tell you, I read Doug's first book back in, when was it, 1978, 1979?
That would be correct.
And
yes.
that was Crisis Investing.
Yes.
Bestseller on the New York Times list for a number of weeks. It was a really good book, and I have to tell you, Doug got me involved but Doug got me involved through that book and through a brief conversation that we had when I introduced him at a conference in Boston back in 82 or 83, that hard assets was definitely the way to go. This book is something that you all really should read. And we're going to provide a method on our website for you folks to pick up this book if you want to. On the back, Doug, is written, irreverent, outrageous, and always controversial. That's you, bud. What do you write about in this book?
Well, I'd cover the waterfront, everything from the Roman Empire to the TSA, frankly. Everything from education to terrorism to charity, which incidentally I don't approve of in the form that you almost always find it. So that book is really about debunking things. I mean, it's like Will Rogers said, the problem is not what people know, the problem is what people think they know that just ain't so. And I don't assume anything in that book, and I wind up debunking most of what most people believe. So people either like that book a lot or they really dislike it, one or the other.
Well, Doug, let's talk about some of the topics that you cover. Charity is near and dear to my heart in the sense that I really believe that everybody needs to try like hell to make a difference. Now, you narrowed that down a little bit in a daily editorial that we did earlier in the week where you said people need to take care of themselves first. And I agree with that. You can't take care of other people if you haven't taken care of yourself, purely and simply. What are your views on charity?
Well, most charities today are corrupt, gigantic organizations with huge overheads that are mainly set up not for the benefit of the recipients, but for the benefit of the donors who like to believe they're philanthropists and play big shot. And most of the money that these charities distribute to the hoi polloi actually don't help the people, but in many ways cement them to the bottom of society because it puts them in a position where they're given things. And you do that more than once or twice, after a while they start expecting people to give them things. Now, I believe in charity on a personal basis, but when I find somebody, first of all, I choose individually my object of charitable donation, and I don't give anybody the money. I don't expect to get it back, but I loan it to them because I want to see them do something productive with it, create capital to get themselves out of the hole and give my money back. So, in effect, I'm in a position to pay it forward in the future. But to me, charity should be a totally individual thing, not institutionalized as a giant bureaucracy which inevitably becomes corrupt and stupid.
You took the words right out of my mouth in the sense that you obviously saw the movie Pay It Forward, okay, and it was an incredible movie, and that's Big Al's philosophy, and has been my philosophy for quite some time, when somebody, a number of years ago, a guy by the name of Walt Raby, paid it forward to Kathy and I. Now we try to pay it forward to other people. I got to tell you, man, my big complaint with charities are, if you look at the salary structures, let's take United Way as an example. Doug, you make a lot of money. The guy running United Way does easily as well as you do. That's not fair, bud.
No, it's not. No, if the guy really believed in charity, he'd be doing it pro bono. But he'd be doing something. Look, if you want to help other people, the best thing you can possibly do is create wealth, make money.
100% agree.
I mean, it's only by, this is the idiocy of people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. They're dissipating that capital so that that pool of capital is not going to exist to finance new technologies, new buildings. It's going to be, in effect, frittered away, and it's gone. Makes a few people feel better for a while. I mean, that's how you get poorer, not how you get wealthier. And I'm talking about a society.
You got to teach people how to fish. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about ethics. What are your feelings on that?
Well, as usual, what people think they know just ain't so. It gets into the concept of good and evil, which I'm afraid the word evil has been corrupted, and people don't like to use it because a fool like George Bush would talk about evil, not knowing what he was talking about, like almost everything that came out of his mouth. So I'm a great believer in ethics. This is why I'm not a believer in laws, quite frankly. To me, a civilized society is one where individuals take responsibility for their own actions and act based upon internal ethics, not based upon observing some law that was passed by some group of politicians. So this is a very long strain of thought we could think about, but no, most people don't think about ethics. They only think about observing the law, which is arbitrary and in many cases stupid and counterproductive.
Couldn't agree with that one more. At the risk of sounding like you're shill, I really have so far agree with everything that you're saying.
Well, we're on the same wavelength.
I believe that's the case, and that's probably been the case for quite some time. You know, a movement that came out a number of years ago that a lot of people had conflicting opinions on was this Occupy Wall Street situation, okay? What are your views on that?
I understand why the Occupy Wall Street guys are unhappy. They see that these guys running these big banks are paying themselves gigantic salaries, gigantic options packages, super gigantic bonuses, and it's basically stolen money. So yeah, there's plenty of reason to be unhappy, and they're even more unhappy that taxpayers then have to bail out these banks so these guys can. So there's plenty of reason to be unhappy. But most of the Occupy Wall Street guys are they don't understand the nature of the corruption, so they want to get rid of capitalism. Capitalism is not the problem. The problem is fascism, where the government is hooked up with these banks. These banks all should have gone bankrupt, quite frankly. So on the one hand, I'm unhappy with the Occupy Wall Street people, but I understand why they're unhappy.
I understand why they're unhappy too. I have to tell you, the problem is there are people out there who really don't understand the business world. You know, Doug, I had an interesting conversation with a friend just a couple of weeks ago, and Kathy and I had gone to see a movie called The Promised Land, Matt Damon movie, and I thought it was an interesting flick. I really did. I thought it was interesting in the sense that it was a great example. A lot of people wouldn't take the movie this way, but the way I took it was a really good example of the evils of predatory capitalism. Predatory capitalism being defined as the Bernie Madoffs of the world, the MF Globals of the world, etc. And I made a comment to a friend. I said, you know, it really showed to me the evils of predatory capitalism. And this person basically, without batting an eye, said, capitalists are all criminals.
Well, of course,
isn't that an interesting comment?
Well, it is. It's a completely ridiculous comment, too. Actually, the term capitalism has, I wonder if we should even use it, because
I wonder, too.
Most people are unaware of the fact that that term, capitalism, was coined by none other than Karl Marx. So it's always been besmirched, and I prefer to say the free market. And when I say the free market, I'm talking about a market totally unrestrained by government. To me, the enemy of the common man today is not the free market. The free market provides all the good things that we have in the world today. The problem is the government, which is pure, institutionalized coercion. And I despise coercion. Government comes out of the barrel of a gun. So it's not capitalism or the free market that's our enemy, it's the government. But people think the government is their friend, their savior, a cornucopia. Once again, it's all backwards.
I want to wrap up the show by saying one thing. I really want you to take a look at this book. It really, really is an interesting book. Doug comments on a number of topics. It's a very, very fascinating read. If you want to get a copy of the book without having to go to Amazon or what have you, click on the banner on our website. We'll get it to you. Hope you enjoyed the show. It was fun originating here from the Cambridge House Investment Conference in Vancouver, British Columbia. Going to be back with you next week.